A lot of dads aren't absent, they're just exhausted and quietly wondering how they became someone they promised they wouldn't. Whether you're outside grilling, changing diapers, or just trying to catch a breath, the Young Dad Podcast is your spot for real conversations about fatherhood, manhood, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jay, and I sit down with dads, experts, and everyday people to talk about the joys, the struggles, and the lessons that come with raising kids and building a meaningful life. From mental health and relationships to faith, family, and the funny stuff only dads understand. YDP is here to remind you that you're not doing this alone. So grab a juice box, grab a snack, kick back, and join the conversation because fatherhood doesn't come with a manual, but it should come with a podcast. Today's conversation is for the dads who are winning at work but feel like they're losing at home and don't know how to slow the spiral. Jon, before we actually get into who you are, what you're doing, everything like that, let's start with a question. Before you ever learned to be an intentional father, what were you actually afraid would happen if you did slow down?
First off, that intro is awesome, and I was vibing to that music, man. That was good stuff. That was a groove. What was I afraid of? Well, I saw when I looked at my dad when I was young, and I think about the career that he took and all that stuff. He was successful in business and he worked really hard. He would tell you today that he put too much focus on work, and he carries regret with him to this day. So I followed that same path. No surprise. Like we often model what we see
Mhm.
our dads do. So I kind of was going down that same path. And to answer your question, what was I afraid of if I would slow down? Well, I had connected my value as a dad. It was directly proportional to how good of a provider I was. And so if I slow down and I am not doing as good of a job of providing, it means I'm not doing as good of a job of being a dad. So slowing down meant like going backwards, going in reverse, and not being the dad that I was supposed to be. So subconsciously terrified.
Yeah, and I think that's so common for, like, all dads, right? Like, because that's what we're taught as men. We're literally taught, like, pretty much out the womb, like, your value is directly tied to what you provide, what you make, what you have in your account, right? That's where your value comes from. Not so much that it's, the actual presence of you being there, the intentionality, when that's in reality what it is, but what we're taught is, it's based on how much you can provide, and that's how we measure our value, how well we do at work, how successfully we are in business, how successful we are at our job, how many promotions we get, where we're at, 21, 25, 30, right? We're supposed to be at all these milestones, and I think that's just so common for us, and we don't think about slowing down because we're just told to hustle, 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 make money, make money, make money, provide, 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 provide.
I agree. And as you were saying that, I had this thought, and I had an internal struggle on like whether or not I wanted to say this or not. So I'm just gonna say it. I think there's even some fear. Like it's hiding in your work is safe
Yeah.
because that's the norm. And I don't know that it's a conscious decision, but to say like, hey, I'll handle being the provider. I'll handle all this stress at work, mom, wife, you handle the stuff at home, like the emotional stuff, like the things where like it's hard and we don't know what we're doing. And I think a lot of guys are terrified of that feeling to be in a position where it's like, hey, I know the stakes are high, but I don't know what I'm doing. I think that scares a lot of people. So it's like, you know what? It's almost like the devil you know is better than the one you don't. I'll take my work stress all day long because I don't want to know like what's on the other side. So I'm going to stay in this lane and I'll be the provider. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and don't you can say whatever you want here, John. It's a good space to say whatever and kinda go there. I love going there, but I think you're right. And there is a lot of fear that as men carry that we don't talk about, right? There's a lot of silent fear that we carry. There's a lot of silent fear of, okay, if I don't know what to do, then I'm not gonna be good. It kinda goes to if I don't know what to do, I'm just gonna assume I'm not gonna be good at it,
Mm,
or I've always been told I'm not gonna be good at that, and that's just, the mom's job or the wife's job and my job again just is all go back to work. The values all tied back to work. At work we get, positive praise, we get, all the things we get all the things that are good. You're 100% right. There's a fear that lays there every single day with every one of us, right? There's a fear like, okay, well, if I just go to work, then I can kind of escape part of it, but then I can just take on this stress and but it'll be fine because it's just work, right? and we're able to kind of justify it, and we find ways to justify it and make it feel not as not as scary, I think, or not as like we overvalue ourselves in one place, so then we end up devaluing ourselves in another one, when the inverse is true. We're actually incredibly valuable at one, and we would be replaced in a week at the other. Like, we literally had someone when I first started at the job I am now, I've been here for, like, 3 years, we had a lady pass away, and her office was literally cleaned out and position filled in a couple weeks. People were sad, but it's like everyone moved on, like, quickly. It was just work, right? We had to refill the position, cleaned out our office, someone else moved in, and just life would completely went on. And it was just one of those kinda eye-opening examples that you see in real life. You're like, "Wow, we are just so expendable at our jobs," and then at home, if you weren't there and you were to pass away, then, that's gonna be earth-shattering, like, actually earth-shattering. They can't just clean out your office and replace you.
That's right.
It You can't just be replaced at home. Your kids just can't replace you.
Yeah. And the risk and something there's a friend of mine made a comment about, like, don't put your identity in something that can be taken away from you. Meaning that,
Mhm.
like, so many men put their identity into their job and their career, but to your point, like, they could let you go and they would replace you in a week and business would go on. And that goes for if you're an entry level person or if you're up in the C-suite. It doesn't matter. So, put your identity into something that truly is yours. And, I made that shift. My identity was my job. Now my identity is being an incredible father or working to be the absolute best dad that I can be for my kids because nothing is more important than that to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think this is a great segue to introduce you, John. John, you're the founder of the Engaged Father Project. After years of climbing the corporate ladder, you hit a breaking point, a panic attack that forced you to confront a hard truth. Success didn't mean presence. Now you help driven dads shift from reactive parenting to intentional leadership at home without blowing up their careers. And so I think one thing I love to hit on when it comes to this kind of conversation, when it comes to work and to home, and one thing that I think is super common with most men is anger, and that we feel we're just angry all the time. When reality, I've I hold a master's in psychology, and I work in mental health. Uh, and so I can say there's a lot of truth to this, but anger is a secondary emotion. Anger doesn't come first. Anger's not the first thing that you feel. You typically don't go straight to anger. Something happened before that. But a lot of time it gets blamed as anger because that's what's seen on the outside and not
Mhm.
caught first. So it typically starts earlier than that. So underneath the reactivity, when you working with different dads and different fathers, what typically shows up first, and why does it usually show up at home first?
It's a really good question. And I can speak, yes, I can talk about how I've helped other fathers and what they've expressed, but I can speak most intelligently about what my experience was.
Mhm.
And your comment about anger being there, like I've said that myself. I'm a generally, and I think back, my kids say like old me and new me, which is really cool. That shows me that like I'm
Yeah,
growing.
that's
It's
awesome.
and I love that. So old me, couple years in the rearview mirror, I was a I was a generally really happy person and silly, but my anger and my frustration was like right below the surface. So it wouldn't take much to bring that up and out and I would shift into this other person pretty quickly. And like some moments of that or enough of those and seeing a couple that were large enough in size is what helped me realize like, okay, like something's not working here because if you're having this big of a reaction over something that is really kind of small and maybe even age appropriate for your kids, like something is out of balance. So for me, what was behind the anger was fear. Fear of not being enough for my family. Fear that I'm going to mess things up with my kids. Fear that I'm going to have a whole bunch of regret later on in my life when I look back at how I did things as a dad and not wanting to feel that way. So fear was definitely the driving force behind my anger.
Yeah, and I think that's so common because fear is there's a beast, right? But there's like you were saying there, right? There was something before your anger. There was a fear. There's a fear of not being enough. There's a fear of messing up. There's a fear of disappointing, letting down, right? There's all these emotions and they're tied to something that if you feel like you messed up, boom, now you're angry. If you feel like you let them down, boom, now you're angry. If you feel
Mhm.
like you did any of those things that you're afraid of, now that's when the anger sets in, and now you're being reactive, and you're taking it out, and it's showing up towards the people you love the most. Why it shows up at home first is because homes are like our safe space, right? That's our space where we feel most comfortable, most confident. We know that at work we can't act that way or we're gonna get fired. We
Hmm.
know we can't act a certain way in public or we're gonna get fired. It's very common too when we have children who maybe do have, maybe emotion lack of emotional control, emotional dysregulation, or possibly even, intense behavioral issues, right? But at home, they're just all over the place. They're just terrible. At school, they're just a much more mild version of that, right?
Mhm.
Because they understand, like at school, I'm not supposed to act this way. They still act out, but it's less extreme. Occasionally, sometimes it's worse at school than it is at home. And those two things are inverse. But it's just one of those things like we know where we can act out and we know where we can't act out. Right. So yeah, it's one of those things, but a lot of times the reactivity is due to unprocessed stress, and then an unmet need. That's
Yes,
kind
I
of
agree with
a
that.
a formula there, is like reactivity equals unprocessed stress and an unmet need. I mean, if your needs aren't being met, then of course there's gonna be some kind of feeling that you're gonna be sad, which can then quickly turn to anger. You can be disappointed, which can then turn to anger. You can be fearful because you're afraid and you haven't been taught something, you don't know something. So then there's the stress and plus an unmet need on top of that, boom, right? And so it's more so about trying to understand, I think, about where your unprocessed stress comes from,
Yeah.
where the stress is coming from, and then where your unmet needs are. But it's not so much about better tactics, it's about who you believe you are and kind of shifting your identity. And so when it comes to shifting your identity along with this, I guess what actually changes, I guess for you in particular, you mentioned that you've gone from an old you to a new you, and your kids
Yeah.
have seen that. What actually has changed when you stopped seeing yourself as a provider only and started seeing yourself more so as a leader at home?
Well, I mean, I changed my priorities. There was a moment in time, a really a really tough stretch of life when things were getting really tough to manage at work when it came to work stress, and then things were boiling over at home. And so things got so challenging for me that I was pretty much forced to like take a step back and reassess some things. And while it was really painful, I wouldn't give that whole painful experience back for anything because it did force me to stop and reassess some things. And now my kids are at the top of the priority. And I don't just say that because it feels good. It's true. And I'm living my life that way. And part of what has led to the biggest change in me when it comes to being a dad is I'm looking for ways that I can do better every day. And I even go as far as to ask my kids, kind of regularly, hey, I one on one, not like a group thing, because I want real feedback. I ask them like, what am I good at as a dad? And they tell me, and whatever they say, that feels really nice. And I tell them, thank you for saying that, and I'll try to do more of that for you. If you think I'm good at that, I'll do more. And then I ask them, where could I do better? And that's not an easy question to ask because the answer you get back might sting. But I'm well over that hump of discomfort where it's like, do I want to ask them? Am I willing to ask them? I am. It's something that I've committed to doing. And what I get back from them, it's pure gold, right? It's like wherever I've been missing the mark with them recently, they let me know. And I was like, "Thank you. Like I hear what you're saying and I'm going to make some changes and I'll do better there because you just told me that it's important to you." And that helps me improve really quickly. And then that's just all within me. And then when I stop and think about what that must feel like for my kids, for the dad, the authority figure, the strong person, all of these things these roles that we think we have to play as fathers. When that authority figure comes to a kid and says, "Hey, where could I be doing better?" I am in love with how that must make them feel as a kid to have their dad coming to them to get their opinion, to creating like a safe conversation where they can give critical feedback to their dad, I think that helps them feel like a really valued and important member of the family, which is like one of my priorities, right? Like I almost want to say that like, we're a family of 4 and that it's like split evenly. Like we're all equally important. And like I kind of put an asterisk on that because it's not like we're letting the kids run the house. We're not
Yeah.
equal partners in that sense. Like we set boundaries and like, yes, there could be consequences for things, but kind of that aside, I want everybody to feel like they're an equal player in this household because we're 4 humans that make up a family and we kind of need everybody to be on board. And I want to have like a shared vision when it comes to how we want our family to operate. And I want there to be like really open communication about what that looks like. And I want them to have input on that. So me asking them for opportunities that I have where I can be better as a dad, I think plays a big part in that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great thing to do, but that's an uncomfortable thing, right? Because I think it's hard for most men to want to accept feedback from children,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
it's something that's like, well, it's like they're children. I mean, it's not. I think it's devalued, right? Because it's like they're kids. Like what do they know, right? What do they know? But I think there's also an element to where you have to be willing to humble yourself. You have to be willing to open yourself up and be open to receive it. Uh,
Because it's going to sting. It's going to hurt. What you hear back, if you've done a good enough job of creating a space where your kid feels safe to be honest with you, to answer that question truthfully, what you get back is going to hurt. And it's going to sting for a little bit. It's going to bruise your ego. You're going to walk away feeling like, man, how did I let this happen? I can't believe that I don't know, that I took my eye off the ball and this is what I've done as a dad. Like that's wasted energy first and foremost because you can't go back and change things. So I think it's important to not get stuck in that. But when you get delivered that message, it stings. But you just got to keep in mind like why you're asking that question and all of the positive things that can come from asking that question. And
mm,
it's worth it. It's worth it. And excuse me, I think as a dad, being in that mindset of constantly being open to where we can improve, even if it's just a little bit, right? I think it was James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. I think he talked about getting 1% better every day and
mhm.
what that yields at the end of the year. And I mean, it was like, I forget the multiplier. It's like you'll be people are going to hear this and they'll know the answer. 7 or like you're 14 times better than you were on day 1 at the end of the year. So it's just small little improvements. We don't have to put the pressure on ourselves to change overnight. Just find something small. Ask people, ask if you have a partner in parenting, ask them. My wife gave me some feedback. It was a couple weeks ago and it hurt. It was jarring and I didn't get stuck in that negativity. I said, thank you for letting me know that. She was silently tracking something for 2 weeks with the intention of letting me know about it once she had tracked it for 14 days. And she told me, and I said, watch what happens in the next 14 days. Please keep tracking it. You're going to be blown away by what you see. Because in that moment, I committed to making a huge change. And I did. I redesigned my environment in my home in a way to help support me on making this change. And the results have been incredible.
That's awesome. Kind of going back to your 1%, the 1% better thing, you would be approximately 37 times better,
There you go.
or about 3,700% improved by the end of the year, thanks to the power of compound growth. So it's like 1.01 times 365, or to the 365th power equals 37.78, a key concept from Atomic Habits. While it might seem small daily, these tiny consistent improvements compound dramatically, far surpassing the simple 365% linear growth, making you exponentially more skilled or capable. So you were right on. It's a whole formula and it's like compound growth as well as that. So yeah, interesting. Well, what was it that she was tracking for those 2 weeks? I'm curious if you would share.
I will share. Whether or not I outwardly displayed any level of frustration with my kids. It was a yes or no, black or white, not measuring the degree of which I wasn't having huge blow-ups. Sometimes, like, moments, my kids are 9 and 13. And there can be challenging moments in a household with kids that are that age because they're
Yeah.
learning so much and they lack so many communication and emotional skills that we have as adults. And I think a lot of times parents, lose sight of that, especially when tensions are high and stress is up. It's hard to step back and be like, okay, they're just doing age appropriate things. You can think that way now. It's really obvious when you're calm and being rational about things. But when we're stressed, like we have like a different set of rules that we follow. And so some of them were, more like a household blow up that I was participating in. But most of the time it would be something smaller. And it would be like whether like physically on my face, I would show frustration, or if it would come through in the tone of what I was saying, or like the actual words themselves. And so she said like, hey, for 14 days, like most days, you outwardly showed some frustration. And I know you well enough, Jon, that you don't want to do that for your kids. So I'm bringing it to your attention. And I was like, wow. Like I wouldn't have guessed that the number was that high. I wouldn't have said it. So it took
Yeah.
that level of accountability coming from somebody else to kind of put that in front of me. And so I had the idea. It was like maybe the day after she told me, where she gave me that feedback. And we had this little tchotchke that was just kind of floating around the house. It was sitting somewhere and it was going to get moved. And I think we were probably going to donate it. And it was just this little green frog. He's got a peace symbol on his chest. He's like sitting in the lotus position. He's on a lily pad and he's got like his fingers like resting on his knees, like in this meditation pose. And it was just kind of sitting there in a pile. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's like, I'm going to put this on the mantle right in the living room, high traffic area. And this thing is going to be a visual reminder of what my goal is. And then I told my kids what I was doing. I told them that about the feedback that their mom had given me. And I told them that I was going to change. And I said, if I get frustrated, anybody in this house, myself included, the 2 kids or my wife, you can take this frog where it's sitting on the mantle, and I put this bowl right beside it. I said, you take that frog and you put it down in the bowl where it basically is covered up and it looks hidden. And then my scorecard at the end of the night is, if I'm going to bed, shutting the house down and turn the lights off at the end of the night, if I see that frog sitting there proudly displayed, I'm in the S column. Mission accomplished. And if it's in the bowl, it's a reminder. Like, hey, you slipped today. And it's not about beating myself up. It's about just being aware that like, hey, you were a little bit off track. Something happened. And then I'll spend some time, looking into why that might have happened. I am proud to say that I'm on a 100% win streak since I was given that feedback, and the frog hasn't had to go in the bowl.
Very good. No, and I think it's interesting, right? It's like I think a lot of us as dads, we I don't want to say like we know, right? But we have a pretty good idea, right, of things that we could do better, but oftentimes we kind of I think it goes back to right what you were saying, like when she told you after the 14 days how high it actually was, and it was like kind of shocking and surprising. Not kind of, was shocking and surprising. And you didn't think it would be that high, right? It shows like we're aware of these things, but we're not like fully aware. It's kind of at a point to where we've maybe like justified it, or we've like made it feel like normal, or we've made it feel like it's not that bad, or and it's probably like 4 days out of the 14 or something, right? It's something like that we're looking at until we actually see what it actually is. And then that can really shift our whole perspective and force us to work with ourselves to change our identity, our behavior, consistency, which all kind of lead one to another, right? Identity, then to behavior, then to consistency. And it goes back to what you said with the frog, right? Like the kids were feeling who you are. Your wife's
Mhm.
feeling like who you are. They're seeing it. They're feeling not who you are, not so much what you say. They feel how you react. They feel how you look. They feel those intense moments coming from you, and they're like, okay, that's how my dad feels versus what he's saying, 'cause I already see the feeling, I see the initial reaction. He could say he doesn't feel that way, but I already saw it, kinda too late. So it's one of those things that easily gets, like, mixed up, I think, or could get mixed up.
For sure. And I think what they feel, those feelings make it way deeper inside of them as a kid than the words.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot more gravity that comes from the feeling, or like sticking power, staying power with them, right? Like we can apologize and we can explain why we reacted a certain way, and we should. Like when we mess up as parents, I fully believe in being open and vulnerable. I think that's like one of the first things that we need to start doing, is like admitting to our kids, like, hey, I'm not perfect, and I'm not saying that to try to just cover up my blemishes. I'm admitting that like I don't have it all figured out, but I'm trying really hard. And then take it a step further, in my opinion, is to give them permission to let you know when you're not getting it right.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, but I think that's also there so you could know you don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes it does have to be pointed out. Like I said, I think we're aware of it, but we often justify it, and we're like, "Eh, probably not that bad." We're
Mhm.
probably okay. And it does take that hard wake up call a lot of times for us to be like, shoot, that's actually probably true, unfortunately, and that kind of hurts. That kinda hurts, and sometimes you need that hurt, right? Sometimes you need that hurt because that makes us kinda re-show up as, like, more present, right? Even though we think presence just comes naturally, a lotta times I think it can be a misconception that, our presence just comes naturally just from, "Oh, we're home, we're present," right? Even though we're on our phones or we're on our computer or we're doing something or maybe we're still working, it's like, I'm home."
That's
I'm
right.
present. And so we think it just comes naturally that way. But then when we realize it doesn't, then us men, we tend to beat ourselves up when we aren't able to be present or when we do miss something or when something does come up. We tend to hold ourselves, be really hard on ourselves in those moments.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
so are there
there's
any
two
like,
things, Jay, that I'd like to say if I may.
yeah, go ahead.
So one, you talked about getting that feedback that it hurts. And so there's resistance to why we would want to open ourselves up to that sort of pain. And I
Hmm.
think if you're a dad and you're listening to it, ask yourself, am I willing to take some short-term pain to make long-term improvements for my kids? Like, and the answer should, for most people, yes. Do I care about my kids enough to go through a little bit of short-term pain? Because like it's normal. I think like most dads would say like, I'd take a bullet for my kids. And I
Hmm.
believe them when they say that, but there's sort of some pride and bravado that comes along with that, with saying like, I care about my kids so much that I would give my life. And I believe them. I take them at their word. But I think there are far fewer people that are willing to take the step of saying, I'm going to ask my kids some questions where I'm going to get some hard truths about their perspective of me. I think not that it's scarier than dying, but I think fewer people actually do it. And then to your point about being physically present but not fully there, there's somebody they met, and they're like a real estate developer. Like they develop these huge properties, outside looking in, like they've got everything. Like they've got A-level celebrity connections and all this stuff. They seem like they have this powerhouse. And he shared this story with me where he would like arrange his busy schedule to always be at his kids' baseball games. And so he was busy, people wanted his time, and it wasn't easy for him to be at these baseball games, but he would be there. And it wasn't until later in life when his kids were grown, specifically his son, where his son said to his dad, "Hey, I know you were always at my baseball games. Like you were at all of them or you barely ever missed it. And I appreciate that. But every time I looked over in the stands, you were on your phone." And what that felt like to me is that you're there, but work still comes first.
Yeah.
And so, like, think about it from the dad's perspective. Like, he's putting in like all of this work, like this Herculean effort, and like my kids have no idea what it takes for me to be here, right? All these things that the dad can feel good about and have this
Hmm.
pride about. But the truth is, he was still taking phone calls. He might have been visually watching his son play baseball, but he was still having a phone conversation. And the impact on the kid was like, damn, like even when he's here, work comes first. And this super powerful real estate guy carries a ton of regret about that. When he learned what I do, the first time I met him, that story came up in the first 3 minutes of meeting him. Like I talked earlier about how like my frustration would be right underneath the surface when I was stressed out from work. This guilt for him is right there.
Hmm.
It's right there. And man, I don't know about you, Jay, or anybody else that might be hearing this, but I refuse to be the dad that when I get older in life, and I'm sitting on a dock somewhere, hopefully on on a lake or something, to look back and be like, man, I didn't do it right. And what I wouldn't give to have another crack at that based off of what I've learned or what I've discovered about my own fears, all these things all this wisdom that we gain over time, wisdom and perspective. I won't be that dad for my kids. And so what I do is every day I improve. That's the goal. Get better every day.
Yeah, 1% better every day, and I think that's important, right? Because it just goes everything back to what we're saying, right? Like there's very simple ways, or there's a lot of simple ways that we can practice being more present, right? Without overhauling our lives. Like you don't have to go through a huge, big, drastic overhaul to overhaul your life to fix these things. It's small little things. It's a lot of small little adjustments that like really hurt. It's habits. It's like I just said, earlier, it's identity, it's behavior, and then it turns into consistency. But you gotta figure out your identity, and then you gotta figure out those behaviors, and then you gotta start working on consistency after that. And like your story there, right? Like he was making the effort. He was so close. He was so close. He was making the intentional effort. He was moving his schedule. He was showing up. He was there. But then while he was there, he just wasn't present. He wasn't present while he was there. He was 90% there, but the 10%, the most important part, was his son just wanted his undivided attention to watch him play baseball. Yes, he
That's
was
right.
there. That was great. Like, thank you so much. I appreciate you attending, but it's like I just wanted you to just be like fully invested,
Show
you
me how
know?
much I mean to you. Show me as your
Mhm.
kid. I know you're busy, dad, and you're being a
Yeah.
great provider, and I know your time is valuable. Show me how much I mean to you by putting
Yeah,
the phone down. And
exactly.
I'm glad that they were able to have that conversation once his kid was grown. So, like, at
Mhm.
least for the kid's sake, that he could express that to his dad. Like,
Yeah.
kudos to the dad for having a strong relationship with his kid, where his kid felt comfortable with saying that. But yeah, man, I can't imagine how much that successful father wishes he could just go back in time and put his phone on silent for a 90-minute baseball game.
Yeah.
Life would have continued. He would still be a successful real estate guy, and he wouldn't be carrying that around regret. So, I
Yeah.
didn't ask the dad, like, hey, how much would you pay monetarily to get rid of this regret? But I think we both know it would be
I
be
don't
a
think
high
there
dollar thing.
I don't think there'd be any price. I don't think there's a price to pay for that. I don't think there's a dollar number that he wouldn't spend on that in the
I,
end, right?
I
It would
think you're
all
right.
come back. He would lose every last single penny if he could, just to go
Yeah.
back and to
So
fix these things.
So if we know that's true, this one person, he's not an outlier, right? There's nothing incredibly
No.
unique about this
No.
dad. So if we know that that's true, and let's say that it would say, I'd give everything to go back. And it's like, well, I'm not going to give up everything. I don't know. Okay, cool. $1,000,000, whatever the price is. If you know you'd be willing to pay that later on, do the work now. Like
Yeah.
find a way today to be a little bit better than you were yesterday, and
Mhm.
try it. You don't need a special program to do that. You could start that right now. Now, there are lots of benefits of doing that with other people and doing it in a program. I think you get better results faster, but no one says you have to wait on somebody else to do that. So
Yep.
do it now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the reality of it too is that you can't spend that money later. You can't go back. There is no going back. There is no going back, time traveling and fixing it and undoing it and paying that amount of money. You only get, you get one shot. You can legit get one chance, and that's all you get, and so you gotta make sure that you're on it, right? And just doing what you can to own it. I guess kinda thinking about this, has there been any, like, outside of the pattern that we talked about earlier for how you reacted outwardly towards your kids with frustration, are there any other, like, really difficult patterns that you've had to unlearn that have, like, really surprised you?
Well, so when I left my job to get certified as a coach, I went through this really incredible program, and it's really transformational. And we were doing an exercise where you write down all of the things that you believe to be true, like your beliefs, things that you just believe about the world or being a person, whatever. And you can kind of uncover these beliefs by saying, like, I believe, and then you fill in the blank. And you make this list, and then you kind of look at it and you start to examine, like, okay, these work well for the life that I want to live, and then these don't. And we started doing this exercise, and the first one that I wrote down, it surprised me. And I wrote it comes from my dad, and I can picture myself being in the garage with my dad, and I was probably 6 or 7. And he said, if you're going to do something, do it right. And I know he had nothing but good intentions with that. It's about putting a good foot forward. And, there's lots of positive things that can come from that, right? Do a good job. Okay. But I internalized that, and I was a bit of a perfectionist. But most importantly, I was afraid that if I wasn't going to be excellent at something, I wouldn't do it. And so there was a lot of fear that I was left with, and fear that would show up in a bunch of different ways, but it would keep me sort of like small and protected unless I knew that what I was going to do wasn't going to come back and hurt me. And that was a pretty heavy price to pay for me. There was a lot of weight that came along with that. And so I wrote that down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden it made sense why I was carrying around all this fear for most of my life, because I had been taught that. And again, I'm not angry at my dad for saying that, because I fully believe that he had nothing but good intentions in saying that. So as part of this exercise, you kind of circle the beliefs that you have that aren't working for you with the type of life that you want to live, and you rewrite them into something that does align with how you want to be. And so I transformed, like, if you're going to do something, do it right, into if you're going to do something, do it with passion. And that's something that I could instill in my kids and live by myself. And that is always going to make sense to me as a person. And maybe it doesn't to some other people, but it certainly supports the type of father that I want to be and the lives that I hope my kids can live.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think that's great. And I think just being able to recognize that and understand that is huge. It's hugely impactful, not for yourself, but for your kids especially. Anything else that you want to add before we jump into the back end of this, start wrapping this thing up?
I don't know, man. I feel pretty good.
Cool. Cool. Well, if you're feeling good, I'm feeling good. Let's jump into the dad zone then. See if this plays. Here we go.
We're in
Welcome
the
to
dad zone now.
We're in the dad zone now officially. Transition is all it takes. A little glitch, but the dad zone is designed to kind of help us bring back our conversation, kind of bring it up again, uh, bring us back to a point to where we're just having some fun as we end the show here for the listeners as well. So it's 4 questions in total. First one being, this is a staple of the YDP podcast. Goes back to episode like 2. Um, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yeah. I said within the last 7 to 10 days, I want to have a pizza with pineapple on it soon. And I know it's traditionally ham and pineapple, but I was like, I bet bacon and pineapple would be even better. So is it going to be like on my list of pizza toppings that, if it was like you could only have this pizza for the rest of your life? Absolutely not. But should it be there as an option? Yeah, for sure.
I like it. These are not the right questions. Who are 3 people, dead or alive, that you would invite over for a dinner party?
Man, I struggle with these things. So I'm not going to pretend to have like this is going to be my final 3 list of people that I would stand by.
Yeah.
But 3 people that I would love to have over for dinner. Holy cow. Jim Morrison from The Doors. And I'm not even a big Doors fan, but I think I'll bet it'd make for an interesting dinner. Gandhi. I want some of that. I can't have enough of that in my life.
Gandhi's
That
like a
just like
top 5 most mentioned person, I think.
I mean, it's a symbol of like unshakable peace. Like
Mhm.
what's better than that? And one more. So I've got Gandhi and I've got Jim Morrison. I'm trying to think about like the sports. Kobe Bryant.
I like it. He's also a top 5.
Yeah, like the stuff you see about work ethic. I don't subscribe to the way that like his level of commitment for winning above all else. That doesn't fit the way that I want to live. So I don't necessarily want to be like him, but I've got a ton of respect for what he was able to do as a human being competing in athletics. It's you can't
No.
deny
And
his
the
results.
cool thing about Kobe too is like even after all these years after his death, like you still don't hear nothing negative about him. His wife doesn't say nothing negative about him. His kids as they grown up don't say nothing negative about him. Like there's nothing bad about him. Like they don't say
Mhm.
anything like poor. They don't speak poorly of him in any way, shape, or form. Never, not once. Even when pressed or challenged or reporters try to get it out of him, nothing. 0%.
He's got a cool
0%.
nickname too.
Yeah. Shaq, like all his teammates that he played with, just nothing but respect. And that just goes to kind of show you like the type of person he is and how much he was, with his family as much as he could outside of the grind of a all year kind of sport. I mean, he was playing deep into March and April most years of his career. So I mean, he was playing for 6, 7 months, and then after that, another couple months off, and then back to training camp and everything. But it still does show you like there was a level of intentionality there. Like even though he wanted to be the fiercest, baddest mofo on the court, like he still wanted to be the baddest mofo he could at home with his
Yeah.
wife, with his kids. And it's just amazing when you think about it that way too. One person I
How do
would
you-
love to I would love to if he was still around, he would be like the number one target. I'd be DMing him every day. Hey, can I get you on this podcast? Hey, can I get you on this podcast? I know I don't know you. I'm a big fan of you since I was a little kid. You're literally one of my childhood heroes. I adore you. No, in not a weird way, but and it's crazy
I
because
don't
he's one
even
of those
watch-
people.
I don't even watch basketball at all. I think what he was able to do transcends sports, and I think that's why he would get one of my three seats at this dinner.
Well, yeah, and he transcends sports in a way that he has 2 Hall of Fame careers wearing 2 different numbers. He has 2 numbers retired for him. That's how great he was.
That's cool.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Kobe's just one of those guys. Like he's
Struck a nerve with you, Jay, man. That one hit
I love
home.
Kobe. He's the man. He's the man. But I think it's cool when you compare it all. Like nothing ever was said about him. His kids loved him. He was with one of his kids when he tragically passed. I think it all just goes to show like the level of intentionality there.
Well said.
Second last question here in the dad zone. What is your guilty pleasure food or snack that you try to make sure that the kids don't see you eating because they don't get any of this dad snack?
Oh, well, I've always said that like my most favorite food of all time is crab legs. And so like, I actually don't buy them anymore because they're like unaffordably expensive.
They're so expensive.
Like that's one where it's like, it's like, oh man, should I do that? But I'm like, man, the kids love it too. So, the price just doubled. So, but that's not like a guilty pleasure. I don't feel great about eating chicken wings, but I don't know. I wouldn't like try to make it so they don't have it. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one, Jay.
That's all good. I think crab legs and chicken wings are a pretty good
cool.
one there. Last question in the dad zone here. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a young dad, age 18 to 22, just starting out his fatherhood journey?
Look for ways to improve. I've already said it. Keep your eyes open. Do a great job. Don't beat yourself up. Have your eyes open and look for ways that you can get a little bit better every day. And take it a step further. Ask somebody that you trust that's around you and empower them to give you feedback on what they see. And if you start that at a young age, you're going to be that 70-year-old guy sitting on a dock, and you're going to say, I crushed it. I absolutely crushed it when it came to being a dad. And my eyes are welling up right now, which is not a surprise. I cry at tons of stuff, but I can't even say that without tears coming to my eyes because I don't know in life what's more meaningful than getting to that point. So dads, if you're hearing this and you're not living the life that's going to let you feel that way when you're 70 years old sitting on a dock, make some changes because time is going to go fast. You may think you got a lot of time. There's a stat that gets thrown around that I love. It says by the time our kids turn 12, we've already spent 75% of all of the face-to-face time that we're ever going to get with them. And by the time they turn 18, that percentage jumps up to 90. So we feel like we have so much time. And I love that stat. And people will argue how it's not true for them and whatever. I'm not saying that it is a fact for everybody. But if it's not exactly right, it's pretty close for most people. So if you got a kid that's, 9, 10, 11, you're getting close to where 3/4 of the face-to-face time that you're ever going to get with them is going to be gone. Meaning, if you want to model things for your kids, if you want to give them, skills and ways of being and like how we handle conflict and stress as a human being, if you want to show them, if you want to lead and model that for them so they actually feel it, because if you just teach and use words, it's not going to have the desired outcome. You have to live it for them. And so if you're hoping to do that, you got to go and you got to do it now. So get serious about it and send me a note when you're 70 and
Right.
say, I'm glad I did it.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. So for the CTRA, I think that really wraps it up there. But for our CTRA for this week, for the listeners, our clear takeaway, reflection, and action, I think that's exactly where you should be. Make the changes now for when you're 70. And so that you can sit back and look back and know that you're not sitting there with regret. You're not sitting there with guilt. You're sitting there with peace of mind. But overall, the takeaway from this episode, I hope you guys have, is you don't need to become a different dad. You just need to become a more present one. And your reflection for this week is, where are you reacting out of habit instead of choosing your response? So again, that intentionality. So your action this week until next week is to pause for 10 seconds before you respond, especially if you feel like you're triggered. I know that word gets thrown around pretty loosely and things like that. So when you're just feeling like something went off in you, like you're ready to pop off, just pause for a minute before you say anything, before you do anything. Just pause for 10 seconds before you respond and notice if that makes any kind of difference. And if this conversation resonated with you, you can check out the Engage Father project in the show notes to learn how Jon helps dads move from autopilot to intentional. And then Jon, I believe you also have a school community as well, SKOO.
Yeah, it's pretty new and there's already awesome things happening there and it's free. So if any of this resonated with you and you want to start making some changes now, look up the Engaged Father Project on school.com, SKOOL. You could do it from a computer. They have a really awesome app that they've designed. And the Engaged Father Project there, it's a group of dads that are showing up every day and we're improving. And there's ways that we challenge each other and support each other. And, it's a fun environment as well. So it's also a place where guys can come be vulnerable because that's not common for people just for a dad to be around other dads and be like, this is hard, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I could use some advice here from other dads that have been through it. This is that space. So come sign up. It's free. Check it out and come start getting better every day.
Love it. And if you're looking on your screen here, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify and you like the video, or you're watching on your TV at home, which is actually super common, you can see it right here on your screen. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you can also just search it, quick Google search, put the Engage Father Project School, and it'll pop right up. So it'll be right there for you guys.
Yeah, I'd love to see you in there.
100%.
And Jey, we were chatting before the show, and I'd like to officially extend an invitation for you to join the Engaged Father Project community on school. Can we see you there?
Yep, I'll be joining after our episode.
There you go. Love to have you there, man. You're going to be an incredible addition to this group, and it gets stronger all the time as more people join. So, and this thing, we're just getting started. This thing is going to be awesome. So come join a group of awesome fathers there that are committed to getting better for their kids, and come hang out with Jey and I.
I love it. Well, Jon, big thanks to you for this great, honest conversation today. And I think it's a great reminder for dads. Your kids don't need perfection. They need presence. If this episode did hit home with you, make sure you share it with another dad, subscribe, and leave a review. If you're on Apple, Spotify, you can leave comments on Spotify. And if you're on Apple, you can leave a 5-star and a review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment. You can do so much engagement on YouTube, and it's all free. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple seconds. And any other platform, please make sure you're liking and engaging with the content in some way, shape, or form. Believe it or not, it helps the podcast a ton. And every podcast you do listen to, make sure you do those things. They're all free, doesn't cost you anything but a minute of your time. And until next time, make sure you clean up your juice box trash, your snack trash, throw it away, and you keep showing up for your kids, for your family. And we'll catch you right here next time on the Young Dad Podcast.